this voyage. So ladies and gentlemen, a pianist performing pieces inspired by moonlight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christian Bellier.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, my first recital on board Queen Mary 2, although I was on board actually 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, but performing in the, what's it called, the Royal Court. So here we are in the Queen's Room, and I have to say I do feel a bit of a gulf between us. It's like, this is England, that's America, and this is the Atlantic Ocean right in front of me. So we'll have to overlook that fact that it's not the most intimate physical setting. So my name is Christian Bellier, and people are usually a bit disappointed when they hear me speak, because my name looks a bit exotic, but I sound actually totally unexotic. In fact, I'm from South London. So sorry about that, with a sort of Polish first name and a French surname. I have ancestors from France on my father's side and Germany. My mother's German, in fact. So I can consider myself sort of pan-European, basically. Yes. So welcome today. First of all, I have to say, I strongly believe music begins where words fail to go any further. And having said that, I do also admit I need to tell you what I'm going to play, and you will probably get a stream of consciousness, some thoughts about what I'm going to play, to give you some kind of handle on it. But really, I have to admit I do not prepare what I say. It just pops out of my head. Sometimes very strange things, actually, which I didn't even realise existed, but it is a stream of consciousness. So I just played a Mozart sonata, first movement, sonata in C. For those of you who like the detail, the catalogue is Curcule 330, because Mozart wrote various sonatas in C. And I have to say, Mozart for me is number one. It's just music which I'm so grateful for. It's like this gift from God, this balm for humanity. However hideous the world is and however cruel life is, we have the music of Mozart, and it's a wonderful consolation. It's music which is very hard to do justice to. Every note counts. And if something is a little out of place, the whole phrase can collapse, and it's slightly terrifying to play, but I do my best. So Mozart had the first word this afternoon, and I'm now going on with something romantic by Robert Schumann, the German composer. In fact, yesterday I noticed was the anniversary of his death. Poor Schumann, we're talking about the 1830s, 1840s, in Germany, even yes into the late 1840s. The poor man, he suffered terribly from mental illness, and he threw himself fully clothed. Actually, he was wearing his nightgown and dressing gown. He threw himself into the River Rhine from Dusseldorf and was fished out and put in a mental asylum where he spent the rest of his years. It's very sad. He had what we would call today bipolar disorder and catatonic depression, but of course there was no treatment in those days. He was overcome with fantastic images and heard voices and saw angels and lived in this very romantic, in a way excessively romantic world. I made a play for you, one of his Kinderscenen, scenes from childhood. I'll be playing more of them later on in a later programme, but just a taster, his exquisite and beautiful Träumerei, dreaming. I forgot to mention, in case you didn't realise, the piano is actually nailed to the floor. So therefore, we have no choice but to have it there, rather than in the middle of the stage. But such is sea life. I will proceed with Schumann's great friend, Frédéric Chopin, and two of Chopin's Études from Opus 10, his studies. What can I tell you about Chopin? The clue is in his name. He sounds both French and Polish. Actually, Chopin is not a French name, it's actually a Polish surname. And Chopin is Polish, but spent most of his career in Paris. Again, we're talking about the 1830s, 40s, 50s. He also died, like Schumann, but extremely young, of tuberculosis, pulmonary disease, basically. There's an interesting fact about Chopin. His body is buried in Père Lachaise cemetery in Paris. I very much visited his graveside when I was there. But his heart is in Warsaw. They removed it from his body. It's slightly grotesque, but absolutely true. I think it's in like a large jar of brandy or something like that. They did tests on it, medical tests recently, a few years ago, to ascertain his cause of death. Anyway, in Chopin there is this wonderful French sensibilité, elegance and beauty, and there's also this rather disturbing, almost violent passion that is always beneath the surface. The composer Debussy, whose music I'll be playing after this, described Chopin as his music as guns hidden by flowers. I think that's a beautiful image which just about encapsulates it. So I'm going to play these two studies, Etude, numbers 3 and 4 from Opus 10. What I can tell you about Chopin studies is he wrote 2 sets, 12 plus 12, Opus 10 and Opus 25. They all exhaustively explore every possible aspect of virtuoso piano technique, sort of separately. Number 3 is really a study in expression. It has a very beautiful melody, but played in the same hand as the accompaniment. So you have to project the melody and keep the accompaniment sort of at a distance. And this melody by Chopin is one of his own favourites. It was set by many a crooner in the 20th century, Elvis Presley and Neil Sedaka. The words go, how deep is the night, no moon tonight. I believe. It's just a lovely, very vocal melody, which, however, gets rather barnstorming in the middle section. And then the study which follows it, Opus 10, number 4, is really a study in demonic bravura, where the left and the right hand are competing for who can cram in the most notes into 2 minutes. It's that sort of thing. So to continue, Chopin Etude, numbers 3 and 4 from Opus 10. something very much more calm now. Of course, playing a recital even vaguely having anything to do with moonlight would include Debussy's Clair de Lune. I have to say, one of my favourite things about being at sea is really seeing the night sky without any kind of light pollution. It can be extremely inspiring, especially on a night with a full moon. Yes, so that was, that was Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy, the French impressionist composer. I tell you something about myself. You know, it's very easy to talk about oneself, and why not, since I'm the only one on stage and I can't really talk to anyone else. Just so you know, I was born in London. I went to school in Canterbury, medieval city in Kent, in the southeast of England, to a place called the King's School, the oldest school in the world, so they claim. It's founded in something like 400 AD, or something extraordinary. So they claim. So I went there, and then I went to Oxford University, where I studied music at Christ Church, Oxford. Then the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, which is in London, in the Barbican Centre. And thereafter at the National Opera Studio, which is also in London. For most of my work these days is actually in opera, in the world of opera, and I'll be nodding to that in my final programme, because I'll be playing a transcription of a scene from opera by Franz Liszt. Not the opera, but the actual transcription. The opera is actually Wagner. I have a position. I spent the last several years living most of the time in Stockholm, in Sweden, where I have a position at the Royal Swedish Opera as a pianist and conductor. So that sort of keeps me busy and out of mischief. And we have very long gaps in the summer of 2 months, a sort of 2-month holiday. Hence, I'm on board playing for you now. I'm going to end up today with, of course, the most obvious, but also most beautiful Moonlight piece, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the complete sonata, not just the first movement. Now, by the way, the title Moonlight is not Beethoven's. He did not think of moonlight when he wrote this piece. It was added by a publisher, but let's face it, it is actually a very apt description for the first movement, which is extremely ruminative, contemplative, and still. An extraordinary thing for a composer who was actually deaf when he wrote it and wouldn't have heard a note, because it's all kept really very soft. Just a couple of words about Beethoven. He, of course, the great classical composer who strode both worlds of the classical and the romantic periods. He was a terribly rude man. He turned his back on aristocracy. He scandalized polite society by his wild behavior. And I remember hearing that he, when he improvised the passes, people were absolutely moved to tears by the beauty of his playing, and he would turn around and say, "You're all fools," and then run out the room. It's not behavior that I plan to emulate this afternoon. But he was a very wild and unkempt sort of man. This sonata, the Moonlight Sonata, is subtitled Quasi una fantasia, so as if a fantasy. And the 3 movements of this sonata could not be more different. But that's why they belong so spectacularly together as a unity, sort of unity through diversity. You have this extremely contemplative, still first movement. Then a second movement, which is light relief, almost comic. I think it has a bucolic atmosphere. It's sort of the countryside, sort of strolling down a country lane, whistling a happy tune, you know, a few peasants dancing in the fields, that kind of thing. It has that atmosphere, which is such a contrast to the first movement. And then we have the finale, which is this presto agitato, fury, thunder and lightning fury. So unbelievably different, these 3 movements, but he says to perform them without a break, as if one leads inevitably to the next. So, ladies and gentlemen, to end up today's recital, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata.
ladies and gentlemen, Christian Bellier. A wonderful performance by Christian there. Let's keep that round of applause going for him. I certainly think he deserves another one. Christian Bellier, ladies and gentlemen.